The regular meeting of the McKinleyville Community Services District Board of Directors for Wednesday, October 7th, 2024 to order. Joey, would you please call the roll?
President Bender?
Here.
Director Beitman?
Here.
Director Couch? Here. Director Mayo?
Present.
And Director Orsini is absent this evening.
Okay, thank you. Director Couch, would you please lead us in the pledge? Are there any additions or changes to the agenda?
There are no additions or changes to the agenda.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Okay. Motion's been made. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Jerry?
President Bender?
Yes.
Director Beitman?
Yes.
Director Couch?
Yes.
Director Mayo?
Yes.
Okay. Closed session discussion. At any time during a regular session, the board may adjourn to closed session to consider existing or anticipating litigation, liability claims, real property negotiations, license and permit determinations, threats to security, public employee appointments, personnel matters, evaluations and discipline, labor negotiations, or to discuss with legal counsel matters within the attorney-client privilege. We have no closed session scheduled for today. Public hearings. These are items of a quasi-judicial or of legislative nature. Public comments relative to these proceedings are invited. We have no public hearings scheduled. Public comment or written communications. Any person may address the board at this time upon any subject not identified on this agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the McKinleyville Community Services District. However, any matter that requires action will be referred to staff for a report of action at a subsequent committee or board meeting. As to matters on the agenda, an opportunity will be given to address the board when the matter is considered. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Letters should be used for complex issues. Do we have any public comment this evening? Okay, seeing none, we'll move along to the consent calendar. Consent calendar items are expected to be routine and non-controversial, to be acted upon by the board of directors at one time without discussion. If any board member, staff member, or interested person requests that an item be removed from the consent calendar, it shall be removed so that it may be acted on separately. Board?
Move the agenda item.
Okay. I would like to remove, for purposes of abstention, item D4.
So modify my motion to remove D4 and approve the rest of the consent calendar.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Joey, please call the roll.
President Bender?
Yes.
Director Bender? Or excuse me, Director Beitman?
Yes.
Director Couch?
Yes.
Director Mayo?
Yes.
Okay. Item D4 is considering the approval of the Senior Center Management Services and Usage Agreement between the McKinleyville Community Services District and the McKinleyville Senior Center.
Almost made it.
Okay.
The recommendation, staff recommends that the board review the information provided, take public comment, and consider approving the Senior Center Management Services and Usage Agreement as is or with modifications for a term of 1 year, and authorize the board president to execute the agreement. For the past several years, the district and the McKinleyville Senior Center have worked under a management services and usage agreement for the McKinleyville Senior Center use of Azalea Hall in the meeting room. This agreement for this year is consistent with the 2023 agreement. The monthly rate of $639 has not increased this year, likely due to the improvements made this past year, the new HVAC system, new water heater, by the district. This rate is reflective of 1/3 the monthly cost of providing utilities and janitorial supplies at this facility. There is an attachment one, and attachment one is the usage agreement. Attachment two is the schedule of use.
Okay, thank you. Is there any board discussion? Comments from the staff? Comments from the public, including those on Zoom? Now, can I have a motion to approve item D4?
I move to approve D4.
Okay, motion's made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and we have a motion and a second. Joey, would you please call the roll?
President Bender,
Abstain?
Director Beitman,
Approve.
Director Couch,
Yes.
Director Mayo.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item E1, introduction and welcome to Kirsten Messmer as the new Parks and Recreation Director and Wiley Robles as the new utility maintenance worker. And General Manager Kaspari, would you please present the item?
Thank you, President Binder. After extensive recruitment efforts, the district was fortunate to interview and offer a position to Kirsten Messmer as the new Parks and Recreation Director to replace Leslie Frisbee upon her move to Human Resources. Kirsten's letter of interest and resume are included as attachment one to the staff note. Kirsten received her BS in Recreation and Admin from CSU, has worked in recreation field for over 13 years, 11 of those being the recreation coordinator for MCSD. And we are happy and privileged to have her as the Parks and Rec Director, and she's doing a great job. So I am going to also move on to Wiley too. Wiley, you want to stand up or wave to everybody? Wiley came to the district as a seasonal employee and showed staff his hardworking abilities. When the district had an opening for the utility maintenance position, Wiley threw his name in the hat and went head-to-head with some really good candidates. Due to his hard work, dedication, shown during his seasonal position, and recommendations from everyone on staff, it was obvious that he was the right person for the job. We are excited to have Wiley as part of the crew. So staff recommends that the Board of Directors review information, take public comment, and welcome Kirsten Messmer as the district's new Parks and Recreation Director, and Wiley Robles as the new utility maintenance worker.
Okay, thank you. Pat, do we have any board comments here?
Sure. I said this before, and Kristen, it's not a welcome because you're a known entity, but congratulations. And for anybody on Zoom and here, I've said this before, I have watched you work at the district, and she just is tireless. She works nonstop, and I couldn't think of a better person to fill this position than you, and thank you. Appreciate your everything that you do for this community.
Okay.
Thanks, Kirsten. I wanted to say the same thing. And Wiley, I wanted to say welcome. It's a big deal stepping up from seasonal to full-time, so congratulations.
Okay.
And I apologize. Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. Director Beitman, do you have any comment?
Yeah, yes, I do. Thank you. For both of you, I want to express my appreciation that you would be willing to dedicate yourself, your work, and your energy to the service of our community in this way. And I want you to know that it's appreciated, not just by people sitting here on the board, but by everybody in this community. It's an awesome thing that you do, and I want to thank you for it.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, thanks for stepping up, Kirsten. It's a natural progression for you. I'm glad that you stepped up. It's going to be a seamless transition, I'm sure. I appreciate your help and being able to work with you over the course of my employment across the road at the senior center. And welcome, Wiley. Yeah, I'm sure that you're going to find a great home here at the district, as you already have. You're just going to be here a little bit more. So we hope to have you around for a few years. Thank you. Does staff have any comment? Okay. Any comment for the public, including those on Zoom? Okay, hearing none, thank you both very much for stepping up to your new roles. Okay, moving on to item E2, presentation by County of Humboldt staff prioritizing essential services in an era of natural disasters. Director Kaspari, and General Manager Kaspari, rather.
Thank you, President Binder.
Thank you.
Over the past 3 decades, Sacramento has taken over $500 million in revenue from Humboldt County's budget. The combination of unfunded mandates and state takeaways is costing the county more than $25 million each year, and with the state's current budget deficit, more takeaways are on the way. The county needs additional guaranteed sources of local funding just for Humboldt County that cannot be taken away by Sacramento. County staff wanted to share the magnitude of the issue they see facing Humboldt County and hear MCSD's Board of Directors' top priorities in advance of what county staff expected to be a challenging budget cycle. Tom Matson, Director of Public Works, and Sean Quincy, Deputy County Administrative Officer from the County of Humboldt, will provide information on prioritizing essential services in an era of natural disasters. Their presentation slides are as included as attachment 1, and they actually sent over some updated slides too that we have hard copies of if people want them. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tom and Sean.
Thank you very much. I also have a copy of the resolution. I brought enough copies for the entire board, if that's all right to pass out, and I have some extra copies for the public, if that'd be all right.
Please.
Sure.
Thank you again, President Binder, Director, staff. Before we get started into the presentation, this is my first time presenting in front of this body, and so I just want to introduce myself and quickly tell you a little bit about myself. Originally from San Diego, came up here in '02, went to HSU, graduated there, studied journalism and early childhood education, worked at both the newspapers, the Times-Standard and the Utica Reporter after that, but began working at the county in 2012, so this will be my 12th year there. Began working there in communications, emergency communications, and now I am working in budget and policy and legislative work. But I'm here with Director Matson and Supervisor Madrone, if you guys want to take a quick second to introduce yourselves.
Tom Matson, Director of Public Works. Public Works covers roads, bridges, levees, garbage, solid waste, buildings, anything else that's falling apart generally falls under the Public Works Department. I've been with the county since 1998, starting as a deputy in charge of roads. I was promoted to director in 2005, and I've been here many, many, many times.
Well, and you all know me, Supervisor Madrone, and I'm just really appreciative of you guys is giving us an opportunity to come and share with you what we're trying to do to fix the roads. So, thank you.
All right, thank you again. So on to our presentation. Over the last 10 to 15 years, the county has seen an increase in the number of natural disasters that are hitting our community. The disasters run the gamut, as you all are well aware, from fires to floods, earthquakes, landslides like we saw down in Centerville recently. Not only are these disasters increasing in their number, but they're also increasing in their intensity. Similar to MCSD, when one of these emergencies happens, local governments, the county will declare an emergency, and that's emergency declaration is an official declaration from the local government that is a states to the public and the state and the federal government that we do not have the resources needed to respond to the emergency. Now, less frequently, the state and federal governments will declare their own emergencies. When they do that, when they do declare emergencies, that's a good thing for us because that opens up funding pathways for us to recoup some of our costs. But too often, the state and federal governments do not declare emergencies. When that happens, the local governments are left to bear the costs of those costly emergencies. And with the increase of disasters, they are starting to take a toll on the county. And we're at a critical juncture where we have to make some hard decisions on what we want to do. Do we want to try to increase the revenue to deal with these disasters and maintain services? Or do we want to make some hard decisions when it comes to potentially changing our services and losing our services? So with that, our presentation will talk about how we got to this point and where we're going from here. But I do want to be very upfront with this body that part of our solution to this problem is local tax measure. On July 23rd, the Board of Supervisors voted unanimously to place a 1-cent sales tax measure on the ballot for roads and bus services. And so that will be on the November 5th ballot, along with the litany of other issues that are going to be on the ballot. So if you want to go ahead and go to the next slide. For the county, part of the pressure that we're facing right now begins with the state government. As was noted earlier, the state government has taken more than $500 million away from the county's general fund in the last 30+ years. And when we throw out that number, it's not a number that I'm putting together on a spreadsheet or on the back of a napkin. These are numbers that are maintained by our Auditor Controller's Office. What happened was back in the 90s, in 1992, the state was facing a severe budget deficit, similar to what they're doing now. And to solve their problems, what they did is they went into local property taxes, and they reallocated, they shifted the way that those local property taxes were allocated. So more of our local property taxes are going to state obligations, leaving counties and cities in a hole, in a lurch. And even though this happened back in the 90s, 30 years ago, our infrastructure was created before that, well before that, relying on these dedicated local sources of revenue to maintain these services. So for the past 30+ years, we have been doing everything we can to try to maintain these services with our existing sources of funding and where we can find state and federal funds. But as I said, we're at a critical juncture now where the status quo just is not good enough. Each and every year, we keep track of this number, and last year in fiscal year 23-24, the amount of money that was diverted from local property taxes was more than $25 million. That money that money otherwise would have gone to the county's general fund to take care of our local needs. Doesn't count the unfunded state mandates that come, that hit us, that hit you, and state takeaways. When times were good, last year, 2 years ago, when the state had a surplus, they promised future spending that we were counting on going after, spending that could go for emergency preparedness, transit services, and climate change actions. But in the governor's budget this year that was signed recently, there were hundreds of millions of dollars stripped away for those programs, just so that the state can take care of its own obligations. So it's a long way of me saying that we don't believe that the state and federal governments are providing solutions right now. They're not realistic solutions right now for us to deal with our problems. And so it becomes very clear to us that we need guaranteed sources of local funding to take care of our needs. We can go to the next slide. It's not the county only that is recognizing this issue. The grand jury last year issued a report to our Board of Supervisors and to the community that said in no uncertain terms that the county needs to do more to prepare for natural disasters. We're just simply more susceptible due to our topography, our susceptibility to sea level rise, tectonic activity, all the reasons that you are all well aware of. Our area is just more susceptible to the impacts of natural disasters, and we need to do more. And what we're talking about today is part of that response to help deal with our local needs. Next slide, please. And if I could leave this body with one message, it is simply that we believe that we are in a new era of natural disasters, and it's a fact of everyday life living in Humboldt County, and we need to reorient the way that we deliver public services in the light of this new reality. Next slide, please. For the county, when I talk about how it's how these disasters are taking a toll on our community and the county government, we're feeling it most on roads. And we believe that we need to harden our roads, and Director Mattson can tell you more of what that exactly means. But we believe that we need to harden our roads because the state and federal governments, while I mentioned that sometimes they provide reimbursements, it is simply not the silver bullet that a lot of folks may think.
So back when I started with the county, we were averaging a declared federal disaster about once every 3 years to the tune of $3 to $5 million. That was absorbable at the time by the road fund. The roads have never been in great shape, but they were in fair condition, which is about what 44 of the other counties are in the state of California. But what's happened since 2017 has devastated the road system. When 2017 hit, we got a storm damage of $41 million, followed in 2019 by another $15 million in damage, and then 5 events between 2020 and 2024 for another $15 million in damage to the road. So over a period of 7 years, we had $70 million in damage to the road. And this is a vicious cycle because we have to use our maintenance funds to repair those storm damages and wait for possible reimbursements for the federal government that may be 6 to 10 years out and may not be coming at all. So we are spinning ourselves into a death whirl on our road system. We have to make some drastic changes if we do not have increased revenue. And so we're looking at, right now, jump to the next slide. Next slide. So yeah, once we get into a storm, we're allowed to open the road, doing clearing basically only an emergency opening. We are not allowed to reconstruct the road until we go through a full federal design construction process, which takes about 3 years to get approval. That's why you see some of our storm sites sitting out there, stabilized in gravel most of the time, but not wide enough to serve 2 lanes of traffic, not paved. Once we get the approval, then we have to front the money for that project, and that's when we get into the big heavy spending, and that's when we get into the 6 to 10 years to get reimbursed. And the way the federal government works is emergencies are not annually budgeted. They're budgeted by the emergency. And so there's not a budget to draw down when we run into these. And so you will hear FEMA come out for Hurricane Katrina and say, we have $8 billion that we're making available for this event. That money is not being made available for that event. Only 10% of that money is. 90% of that money is going to pay local agencies back across the nation for outstanding storm emergency invoices. That's how the system works. It's not a good system, but it does get us some money back in the long run. The other thing that happens that Sean touched on a little bit is we only get funding to put it back the way we have. We don't have additional local funds to improve the project. The feds will not pay to improve the project except in very rare occurrences. And so you have sites that will continue to get damaged in future storms because it's the same infrastructure it was before we put it back together. So we look to want to build better retaining walls, better rock slope protection. When we get a washout on the river, not just fix the washout, but fix the ends where it's going to start washing out the next time. We're not allowed to do that under the federal funding. So we're stuck in a vicious circle here of getting our roads closed, having to spend our maintenance money to fund to reopen them, and then waiting and not being able to do the maintenance we need to do on the rest of our road system. Next slide, please. So we rate our roads on what's called the Pavement Condition Index. A new road is 100, a gravel road is 0. There's no pavement. For most of my career with the county, we sat in the mid-60s. We were able to stay there, and then 2017 hit, and we started to spiral down. In 2017, when we had the consultants come up and look at our road system, they basically projected we would be in the poor condition in 2022 with a PCI of 49, and that's exactly where we ended up. We are dropping rapidly in our condition, and the problem with that is like fixing the roof on your house. If it starts leaking, you better fix it before it starts getting mold and then collapses into your kitchen. The county road roof is collapsing into our kitchen. And so we're in the poor condition. At our current rate of funding, we are projected to be in the very poor to failed condition in 10 years. Next slide, please. So just an example, a new road of a pavement of 100. Next slide. This is where we stood for most of my career on an average county road. Yeah, they're cracked, they have potholes, but they're serviceable for all of the types of uses that we need them for. Next slide. This is where we're at right now. We're at a PCI of 49. If you can see, I don't know if you can see with the fade out, but with the tight cracking on the slide on the right, the tighter the cracks become, that means your base has failed. That means you can't just surface the road and expect it to last. You have to redig out the entire road and rebase it and rebuild it up from the foundation. That's where we're getting on a significant number of roads in our county road system. Next slide, please. And we're projected to get even worse if we don't change. We do a 10-year scenario run every time we bring these, every 4 years, we have to bring these consultants in to rate our roads. That's a state law that to allow us to get state funding. When we brought them in 2012, they ran a 10-year scenario and said it would be $150 million over 10 years to bring it up to a PCI of 70. That PCI of 70 is important because that's where you minimize your operational costs, because you're just doing surface treatments. You're not having to rebuild the entire road system. And so when we did that number in 2017, it was $300 million. And our current scenario from 2022 is if we wanted to get to 70 in 10 years, that would be $500 million needing to be invested in our road system. The asset value of the county road system at this point is about $1 billion. It's a huge asset for the county, and it is deteriorating rapidly. Next slide, please. This is where we're going. Roads that are just very unsuitable for normal traffic. Next slide, please. And I'm over with the bad news. Back to Sean.
Could I ask Tom some questions before? Could I ask before he quit? Could I ask you okay with you? I've got some comments to make later, Tom, but specifically right now, I'll use my road as an example for the questions, and you know, we've talked about this previously. Since '85, and I knew the property prior to that for 15 years. It belonged to my father-in-law. Nothing has been done to our road, which is the road that comes into the back of the airport and up to a county park, which is the rodeo grounds. Nothing. My father-in-law maintained it. I have since '85. I patch all the holes. Luckily, Hooven's or Mercer Fraser generally lets me have the pavement or the black BAC material, and I buy it when I need to. And I have maintained that because I don't want it to get to the point that it has to be a base redone, okay? I talked to you, maybe 12 years ago about getting you to chip seal it, and you told me that if I got the property owners to buy the material, you would do the work, and I couldn't get that put together with the property owners. Now, having said that, my question to you is, per state versus federal on these emergencies, like with it washed out, and who would you be able to get reimbursed from if, like that culvert that we had talked about and washed out that I didn't let happen? How does that, and this is germane to all kinds of roads all over here. It's not just specific to me. Is that too vague of a question?
No. Under the federal, if it's a local emergency only, the county has to fund it. That's what happened to us in Centerville. We had to build a new road with our own people and our own crews. We did not have any money to hire anybody and no reimbursement.
And no reimbursement?
No reimbursement.
Okay. All right.
So if it's a state-declared disaster like the earthquake, the state does provide 75% reimbursement rate. And they actually pay rather frequently. They don't we don't have to wait 6 to 10 years for the state to pay. If it goes federal, then the federal government pays something like 88%, it's like 88.75%. The state pays 75% of the remaining 11%. So we end up theoretically only having to pay about 7%. But again, that does not account for the construction cost escalation over time and the fact that we aren't allowed to improve the site.
And that just is for the repair,
That's just for the,
not to resurface the rest of the road or anything?
no, no,
like-
no, that's
okay,
just,
gotcha.
when,
All right, thank
when
you.
the state and feds come out, they send inspectors. Unfortunately, they no longer have long-term inspectors. We get people that have no experience in roads at all, and their main job is to basically be a bad insurance company in the short shrift as much as they can. And so they will come out and develop a project worksheet and tell us, well, that's just the estimate. Well, 5 years later, when things change, they say, you signed that worksheet. And they make it as small as possible. They make sure we don't creep beyond the edge of the projects, even if it's obvious that if we stop at this location, it's going to come back and haunt us. They will refuse to go anything further. And so that begins the process. Yes, the reimbursement is good in the long term, but in the short term and in floating the money, it's a bad thing especially for rural counties, especially, I mean, Santa Cruz County, I think in 2017 had $75 million in damage. They are really hurting. And we've had to have the county treasurer basically float us money because we're in the red waiting for reimbursements.
Thank you, Tom. I have some questions when we get to the tax initiative relative to it, but thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Sure, so I'll be brief in this part. The good news to tag on to what Director Mattson was saying was that we believe that the community broadly feels the same way that we do and that they want to see something done. When the board was considering this measure, the board's been considering this measure for several years now. Over the summer this year, we did some polling, scientific polling for likely voters, and this is what returned as their top priorities. Creating local jobs, repairing, maintaining roads, and providing bus services for people who need it. And we believe that this sales tax measure that we've proposed would deal with those issues pretty well. We can go to the next slide. The concerns that they had, that voters had expressed through this poll, was that they wanted to make sure that whatever we did would allow us to claim our fair share of that state and federal money that's out there. As Tom alluded to, big urban areas grab a large share of the state and federal money that's out there, and we can't get to that money because we don't have the local match for these things. So whatever we do needs to allow us to get that fair share of money. Whatever we do needs to protect us from the state's budget deficit, improve our road conditions. The local control part of this was important because a voter-approved measure can only be taken away by voters. Voter-approved measures cannot be taken by Sacramento. It's an important distinction. And as Tom mentioned, doing something so that we can repair our roads now will save us money in the long run. So with that, thank you again for having us. And Supervisor Madrone, if you want to send us out.
Thank you, Sean and Tom. Good questions. And I'm sure we have more because nobody likes taxes, right? The good news is that even with this 1 cent tax, in the unincorporated areas of the county will still be lower than every other city. They all have higher tax rates already and will also have tax measures in November. There's an old saying that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and that's absolutely applicable in this situation. In fact, the state has data that shows that on average, every car owner is spending approximately $900 a year on car repairs associated with bad roads. Who's hit a big pothole and all of a sudden your front end goes out, your alignment, your shocks break, brand new set of tires, and now your alignment's done. So we know those things are happening, and it'd be nice to move this up front and have the money to be able to actually do something. And as Tom said, once we have the money, we can leverage federal and state funds. Right now, the money we have for roads is all going to emergency repair. So we don't have the money to be able to leverage all of that money from the federal government and the state. So this tax measure would allow us to have that and leverage our local money in a big way, 20 to 80%, that kind of thing. The other thing is this is a general tax measure. The polling suggests that trying to get past 67% would probably be difficult in this time of need, because there's going to be a lot of other tax measures out there with the state and others. So it's a general tax measure, which is 50% plus one vote. And the polling suggests that there is support for that. It's very much like Measure Z. You know, Measure Z also was a general tax measure, and the voters had concerns about whether or not the money would actually be used for public safety, right? That was considered the public safety measure. And Scott served on Measure Z committee for several years. Thank you for that service, Scott. You did a great job there looking out for the community. And that money has truly gone to those needs that it was declared to be for, public safety. I mean, you know, here in McKinleyville with the substation, the impact that's had on additional officers. You could say that a lot of Measure Z did go to general fund type expenditures, but none of it went to existing types of general fund. It went to enhancements to our sheriff's department, to probation, to the DA's office, and it also went to social service work through the Department of Health and Human Services. So not a dime of it was spent on what you might consider to be, let's just take some of this and put it in our general fund to solve some of our budget problems, which we have very big problems, both locally and at the state level. But not a dime of it went to those things. It went to these public safety measures, including fire services. A huge amount, a couple of million a year, have been going to volunteer fire departments for new engines and turnouts and all the other equipment that they needed for that. So we're going to have a committee, Tom could talk about that a little bit more, to make sure that we're accountable for this money, because we know this is not a small ask. But we're very hopeful that you guys will support this and talk to community members about supporting it, because otherwise I don't know where we think we're going with our roads. I don't think we have to convince anybody about the state of our roads right now. So Tom, can you explain the accountability measures?
Sorry, we skipped over that. If this passes, we want to be extremely transparent. That means that we'll probably be using committees with the Humboldt County Association of Governments that have the technical people on them, and the Social Services Technical Advisory Committee, which deals and recommends with transit. They're all public meetings, open to the public, properly noticed Brown Act meetings. We will have probably an oversight allocation committee that decides on the allocations in a public meeting. We will bring our annual work plan before the Board of Supervisors. We have a program that recommends our maintenance based upon our funding available. And so it's set to try to fix our system based on what money we have left. So we plug it in, it tells us what roads to work on. Then we'll bring that to the board. When we're all done with the spending for the year, we plan on bringing it back to the audit committee, which is the elected auditor, elected treasurer, a couple of board members, and several members of the public, to review our expenditures and make sure that we spent everything in accordance with the resolution in the tax ballot.
Scott, I want to ask him a question. Okay, I'd like for him to.
Yeah, can you finish your presentation before we open it up for questions?
I'm done.
Well, I want to ask him a specific question about what he just said.
Okay, can you write that down and do it after he's done? I don't want to break their cadence.
We have one more slide that lays out the citizen oversight that Tom was just mentioning. So again, we'll have several layers of public lead notice, Brown Act committees that would oversee where the money is going and then be able to report out on where the money is spent. So we know that public transparency is an important part of any measure that goes before voters, and we're trying to make sure that's a top priority in this measure. So with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Dennis.
All right, Tom, I'm a little confused. No, I'm not confused, I'm flummoxed. Does HCOG have anything to do with our Measure Z money?
No, HCOG deals with roads and
Okay.
transit.
Why would HCOG have anything to do other than coordination a bit with this tax measure? This is a tax measure specifically that we are doing for, in my understanding, our road maintenance. HCOG, in my opinion, shouldn't have anything to say about it other than coordinating with projects they may have in the working. So I would like some explanation for that.
The reason we're doing that is their Social Service Technical Advisory Committee is the committee that reviews all the transit within the county. And so they are the experts, and they are the ones that hear the unmet transit needs every year. They're the ones that recommend funding. We want their input on whatever goes to transit to make sure that it's done in an open and public process by people who are involved in transit and know transit.
Okay. And I understand that. I don't agree with that. I'm just saying, and just in terms of, this is a tax that we may impose upon ourselves, the county, and it is a specific tax for, and it's, are we at the point to talk about the generalities of this yet or not?
Yes.
Okay, so let me just back up a step or two. And this is, it says a general tax for use for any general government purpose. My understanding is you're structuring it that way because you think in that format it'll pass, as opposed to the other format that we were thinking of. And so, and if that's the case, I understand that, but therein lies pitfalls. And one of the pitfalls is what I'm bringing up with HCOG, and it's my opinion only. Well, not mine only, other people tell me, but bus service. We should be talking about paving our roads, maintaining our roads. I support bus service immensely, but it should not be part of this. We need to find a mechanism to come up with the funding for that. Our roads are in such a horrible condition that, and Supervisor Madrone, you know, that Measure Z got so convoluted with everybody wanting this, and all valid requests, I agree, but we got to keep this honed in specifically. And so, I think it's really incumbent on committees like ours, boards like ours, the city, everybody who's going to work on this, to say clearly and just be anal, if that's not an inappropriate position, that this is strictly for our roads. So anyway, that's my only point of it, you guys, and I know you feel probably very similar. How do we make sure that happens? Anyway.
So the funding allocation versus what is going to be recommended from those fundings are two separate steps.
I get it.
So HCOG will have no involvement in the funding allocation, but what funding is recommended to transit will go to the HCOG committee, because they're the ones that deal with all the transit in the county for everything we do. We don't deal with transit ourselves at the county. And it's the whole measure is based on polling and what the public is telling us, and there's significant support, but they're not part of the allocation process. That will be a separate oversight committee that says, okay, for the next 5 years, roads gets X million, transit gets Y million. And then that goes off to the separate.
But will they have the thumb up or the thumb down on whether we decide to fix this road or that road in McKinleyville or Fortuna or what?
The fixing of the roads comes from me and then is recommended to the Board of Supervisors.
Okay.
And like I say, I have a computer program.
That's all I
that's
wanted
set
to
up.
hear, Tom. Thank you. And I apologize for interrupting, but that's all I wanted to hear.
Not interrupting, we were done.
Okay, are there any more board comments? Director Beitman?
Thank you for your presentation.
Okay. Good. Director Cash? I've got a couple of questions. Okay, if this tax measure passes and it generates the approximately 25 million per year that is forecasted to, who would be responsible for the percentage of allocation to the 5 bullet points on the end of the resolution?
So in the resolution and the staff report that we brought to the board on the 23rd, we proposed developing a work group that would come back every time a new allocation methodology was being considered. In that work group is going to be Public Works, it'll be Transit, it'll be board members and county staff. So we'll present that publicly to the Board of Supervisors and say, our roads needs are this amount, we believe that roads should get this much money every year. Bus needs are this amount, we believe this much should go to bus services every year. The board would deliberate and determine what that percentage would be. But our vision is that those allocations would be set for a period of time, as opposed to Measure Z, where we went back every single year and jiggled with applications and that kind of a process. We want to do more of a set allocation process and revisit it every few years.
Okay. As a voter looking at this, for me, I would be a whole lot more comfortable supporting this if I saw specific percentages of allocations to those bullet points. And that's just my opinion. I do have a second question. The resolution, if passed, will generate $25 million approximately annually. What's to stop the state from not taking this money, which it can't by law because it's a resolution, but by coming in and taking other general funds that they actually can?
So this measure only protects this money, this sales tax money. There are other money that is approved by the state can be taken away by the state.
Okay, so in theory, if Sacramento sees that we got this $25 million per year through this resolution, then they may, in theory only, take another 25 million on top of what they already had. Is this correct?
From somewhere else. Sure,
Okay.
that'd be an act of the legislature.
Okay,
Again,
thanks.
we
That's
try to
all I
do
have.
everything we can to protect our resources wherever we can. It's important that we have great state leaders like Senator McGuire and Assemblymember Wood, and hopefully we'll get another great assembly person in the election, but yeah, we need to do everything we can to protect our resources. Absolutely.
We have a hell of an advocate with Senator Pro Tem McGuire, but he's a short timer, so we don't know what's going to happen down.
Yeah, he does have our back.
Well, those are some great questions, and if the state were to take money, it wouldn't just be from Humboldt, it'd be from all the counties, right? So it would be a statewide fact. And there's no preventing that. I mean, we as voters have some influence on all that ultimately too. But you know, you talk about having earmarks or percentages. I think we all would be more comfortable with that. But to do that, you have to have a special tax. When you start earmarking things, you're making it a special tax. So what we did with the language here was try to make it very clear that it's going to roads and bus services. And while 911 is listed and emergency preparedness is listed, the money doesn't go to repeater stations or to more deputies or other kinds of things. That's Measure Z, right? And so we made the language really clear that the way we help with 911 responses and emergency preparedness is by fixing the roads. Right? So that's the tie-in for all of that. And we took the language as far as we could legally as a general allocation without driving ourselves into the special tax category. So that's why that was done that way. And, you know, it's not an easy thing to figure out how to make these things happen. Like I said, nobody wants new taxes, but this is the best way we could figure out to try and start solving our problems with our roads. The other thing I didn't mention is that, as you know, Scott and others, Measure Z has provided some money to roads, but very little really out of the big pot. Maybe $500,000 here, occasionally a little more than that, but it's never been large sums.
Right.
By having this road measure, we will no longer be going to Measure Z for any of the roads money. That's going to free up money in Measure Z for more fire services and other types of things like that. So, that feels pretty good too. They kind of start combining together to have a positive impact for the county. But I think with Measure Z and the way it did operate, I think we can absolutely look the voter in the eye and go, yeah, there was that comment at the very end of the ballot measure, just like there is on this one that says, and our other general fund expenditures. And that kind of freaks people out, to be honest, right? If you look at that. But I think we can look people in the eye and go, we didn't use it that way in Measure Z. We were accountable for that money to go to public safety specifically. We did not use it to bail out the county's general fund deficit and the rest of it, which is a whole nother matter. And we've got quite a fiscal cliff coming, so there's a lot of other things. The other thing is that transit right now is supported by 40% grants from the state. What if that did disappear? Are we going to lose 40% of our bus services? That's a huge impact. So, this is to try and help. But of the 24 million, it's not like 10 or 15 million is going to transit. It's going to be a few million at the most. It's not, the bulk of this money is going to roads and all those things that were listed that are part of the road scenario. So I hope that helps, with what we're trying to do here in terms of, help the voters feel comfortable in supporting this. So, but thank you for your questions.
So you kind of answered that with my question I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
I'm afraid that the bus lobby is going to push and push and push and push. And again, I support the buses, and I just would hope that the majority of this money goes directly to roads. Can you give me some, because you kind of just mentioned it here a second ago.
Yep.
What's your gut on how much of this is going to go to the buses as opposed to the roads?
Very small portion, like I said, maybe a few million at the most out of the 24. And boards change over time, right? Right now, we've got certain 5 members. That could change in 2 years. They're always changing, right? And the makeup of the board affects the outcome of a lot of these things. But I can tell you that Rex, Michelle, and myself, as the district reps for the rural part of Humboldt County, including McKinleyville, are adamant that this money is going to roads. And yes, we want to help with transit, but that's going to be a small piece of the puzzle, and we can show that we have stood up to that bus lobby.
What's your crystal ball on future, probably federal, some state, not right now state, funding for buses?
It's going to continue to increase because transportation is a huge part of our emissions issue, with fossil fuels and the rest of it. So, there's a lot of work being done by Humboldt Transit to convert over to hydrogen buses and other things. So there's a lot of work in that arena, and I suspect there's going to continue to be a big push at the federal level to continue to add to that.
I think no matter what administration we have federally,
Yeah.
bus transit is going to be in the works.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And very soon, we're going to have transit on demand, small van systems in McKinleyville to help people get to the bus or to get to Arcata and things like that. So we've all been working really hard, and the transit lobby helped, make this happen with some of the grants that they got themselves.
I apologize for interrupting again.
That's all right.
When you have a little more solid data on that, could you come in and give us a presentation on,
Sure.
on that? I think that would be
Absolutely.
good for our community to know.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you, Dennis.
I know that my seniors across the street here are looking forward to that microtransit project that's been in the works for the last several years. I occasionally hear people ask about that. When's this going to happen? When's this going to happen? I said, when we get the money. So this may be an occasion to give them a little hope. Okay, are there any more questions from the board? Questions from staff? Tom, do you have any questions? Jack? Okay, hearing none, thank you very much for your presentation, guys.
Thank you, guys. Nice presentation.
Do appreciate your time.
Thank you. I'm going to follow the rest of the meeting online.
You have to stay here.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
Okay.
We're not sure what our state online procedures are exactly right now.
No, I've been watching the camera. Okay.
Actually, we are.
All right, we are actually. Okay, moving along to item E3, consider approval of resolution 2024-17, granting an easement to the Pacific Gas and Electric Company for the 4.5 million gallon tank project site at APN 509-121-045. This is presented by General Manager Kaspari.
Thank you, President Binder. During the planning stages for the 4.5 million gallon water storage tank project, it was discovered that the existing PG&E service to the Cochrane tank site needed to be upgraded to serve the new 4.5 million gallon tank in addition to the existing tanks. PG&E has requested an additional easement across MCSD owned property at APN 509-021-045 to reach the new drop location. The new easement will be approximately 2,080 square feet in area as shown on attachment 1A. The easement will facilitate PG&E running a new power drop to the Cochrane tank site, replacing the existing service. So staff recommends that the board review the material provided, discuss, take public comment, and approve resolution 2024-17, approving the granting of an easement to the Pacific Gas and Electric Company for the 4.5 million gallon tank project site, and authorize the general manager to sign any necessary documents.
Okay, thank you. We'll take it to the board for comments.
Motion?
Okay, no comments from the board. Comments from staff? Comments from the public? Okay, I'll call for a motion.
Motion to approve the resolution 2024-17, granting an easement to Pacific Gas and Electric Company for the 4.5 million gallon tank project site.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Joey? Yes.
President Binder,
Yes.
Director Beitman,
Yes.
Director Couch,
Yes.
Director Mayo.
Yes.
Okay, that's approved. Moving on to item E4. Consider the regular board meeting dates, time, and location for the 2025 calendar year, presented by Board Secretary Jerry Boyne.
Thank you, President Binder. Both the MCSD rules and regulations and the Board of Directors policy manual address this topic. Regular meetings of the Board of Directors shall be held on the first Wednesday of each calendar month at 6 p.m. at either Azalea Hall, 1620 Pickett Road, or the District Office, 1656 Sutter Road, as specified by the agenda. Additionally, the public may attend the regular board meetings by teleconference via Zoom and telephone. The date, time, and place of the regular meeting shall be reconsidered annually. Staff has reviewed the 2025 dates and has taken note that the January meeting would land on New Year's Day, January 1st, 2025. This meeting may be moved to January 8th, 2025, or omitted and items consolidated with the February board meeting. It would be staff's preference that the January meeting be omitted. The remaining 11 dates appear unproblematic. Board members are encouraged to review all the proposed dates and come to the October 2nd, 2024 board meeting with any other potential conflicting dates. Staff recommends the board review and discuss the proposed schedule for McKinleyville Community Services District regular board meetings held on the first Wednesday of each month for the 2025 calendar year. Outside of the board meetings, directors are requested to review the attachment and provide any conflicting dates to the board secretary, either in person or in an email. This item will be scheduled again for the October 2nd, 2024 board meeting, at which time the board members will make a final decision on proposed dates.
Okay, thank you, Joey. Do we have any board comments on these? Y'all check your calendars. Okay.
I'm fine with it. It's the usual.
The usual. Okay, now, since this will be brought up again on October 2nd at the board, I guess we are done with this item. Unless, do you want to get a feel of who's for or against the January meeting being canceled?
We can talk about it in October. That's
Okay,
fine.
good enough. We will move on to item E5, which is considering the topics and dates for the joint McKinleyville Municipal Advisory Committee and the McKinleyville Community Services District Board meeting. And this is presented by General Manager Kaspari.
Thank you, President Binder. As the board is aware, MCSD's Board Policy Manual and the McKinleyville Municipal Advisory Committees, or the MCMAC bylaws, state that the entities will conduct an annual joint board meeting to discuss topics of interest to both. The possible dates for a joint meeting was discussed at the June 26th MCMAC board meeting, and the date that will work best for them is October 23rd at 6 p.m. at Azalea Hall. Staff will inform the MCMAC board president of topics outlined by the MCSD board for potential discussion. To assist the board, the following list of potential topics were developed by staff. However, the board should feel free to add any additional topics of interest. The status update on the McKinneyville Incorporation exploration, and the MCMAC really did want to talk about that. A status update on the McKinneyville Community Forest, and a status update on the McKinneyville Town Center. And they really wanted to talk about the Town Center as well. So staff recommends that the Board of Directors consider the proposed October 23rd date to confirm director availability, consider potential meeting topics, take public comment, and provide direction to staff on which topics to propose to the MCMAC board, and consider approval of the proposed October 23rd date.
Okay, thank you, Pat. Okay, board, first off, I'd like to discuss the proposed date. Does the date of October 23rd at 6 p.m. work with our schedules?
As far as I know, yeah.
Works okay, Dennis?
Fine with
Fine.
me.
Dave? And
Whatever
Greg?
the pleasure of the board is.
Okay, Greg's not here, so okay.
Oh, you know what? We need, since Greg is not here, we need to assign him some tasks.
Yeah, well, maybe we can figure out what to do about that. Okay, moving on to the topics at hand. We have the three that are indicated in the bullet points, the McKinleyville Incorporation exploration, community forest, and the town center. Are there any additions or comments that you'd like to make?
I like those.
Those good? Those will keep us on track for the full 2 hours that the meeting's slated for, and they will be brought up as time certain discussions. What are you doing?
Who's put the earphones there?
Colleen.
That's Colleen.
Oh, hi, Colleen. I can't see who's on the deal, and I can't see that. It's like a blur to me. I apologize.
Okay, it's Colleen. Okay.
One
So,
quick question, please.
yes.
Does the order in which the topics are listed here have any significance with regard to priorities in discussion at the joint meeting?
I would guess no, because I'm to believe that the main topic of discussion would be the town center.
I'd like to see that, and I'd like to see that not set aside for what I would expect would be, shall we say, less productive discussion of the incorporation topic. If anything can be done to influence the positioning of that so that the town center discussion has the opportunity for full play.
Okay, the topics will be set for time certain, so they'll all have equal weight unless we decide that we want to give one topic more time than another one and have the MCMAC agree with that. Would that be fair to assume?
Yeah, sorry, Dennis. The MCMAC really wants to have Director Ford present on the town center and where the EAR stands, et cetera. So they are really pushing for that as well. And especially if Director Ford is going to be there, we would likely have it as the first agenda item. And so you can choose to stick around or take off.
Okay. Dennis?
Thank you, Jim. I had this similar viewpoint, and yet I didn't think I thought it was I agree with Jim, and I would like the town center to get the lion's share of the time. I would like the town center item to not be restricted with time. I would like it to have all the time it needs. And if it takes up 3/4 of the time, these other items are less time critical, in my opinion, only. But the town center is something we need to, I think it just needs to have all the time it needs, and that's my 2 cents worth on the thing. You know, and if it took, again, like if it took up 2/3 of the time, I would be fine with that. Let's vet it, talk about it, and then the other 2 items can be discussed a little more in brevity, and can come back for another meeting, because they're not time sensitive like the town center is, in my opinion only. That kind of concur with your thoughts, Jim?
Yeah, that's, yeah. I just don't, I'm just concerned that the town center, that we do have the opportunity to fully explore the town center.
Right. Too often we do of these things, and we set up too much, we put too much on our plate, and then everybody goes away kind of, well, I didn't click quite, and we've been doing this town center for a long time, guys, and I think it deserves our full attention, put it that way. Any comments from staff? I'd appreciate it.
No, I think that comports with the MCMAC's preferences too. I think the big question is if Director Ford is not ready to present anything, then it may not take that much time.
Should we touch bases? I mean, do we have to make is tonight's a decision like in stone? Okay, should we maybe, would you like to talk to John, or would you want me to, or what?
No, Lisa Dugan, the current president of the MCMAC, was intending to talk to John Ford. After we heard this at the MCMAC meeting, she stated that that's what her next step was going to be. I don't know if she's had that conversation yet or not. I'll follow up with her to see if she has.
Okay, and that's fine, but I don't want to leave our joint meeting just kind of dangling on that possibility. If she doesn't have time or doesn't, you know, I can call John at any time, and you can as well, and I'm happy to do that, but I would like to know that. I think having heard that, I think we need to find out if he's prepared for a dedicated presentation for however long it may take. And if that's the case, that would be my preference.
Okay, great. Would you be able to communicate that with Chairperson Dugan and assure that Mr. Ford is ready, or find out any more information and also express to the MCMAC, since Greg isn't here, you know, you're a MCMAC member yourself, of the priority for the town center discussion?
I will send an email tomorrow to Lisa.
Okay, that's awesome. Okay, for purposes of this this action item, we're to discuss the date of availability of us, which we've already determined to be October 23rd at 6, and it's okay with us, and the 3 agenda items. So I'd like to call for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And Joey?
President Bender,
Yes.
Director Beitman,
Yes.
Director Couch,
Yes.
Director Mann.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That passes, and the specifics will be worked out down the road. Okay, item E6, first reading of ordinance 2024-02, amending Regulation 24, use of the public sewers to address mobile food trucks, presented by Pat Gaspari.
Thank you, President Bender. As the number of food trucks operating in McKinleyville has increased over the past few years, it has become apparent that the district needs to refine our regulations to prevent the discharge of fats, oils, and grease and other deleterious materials into the district's wastewater collection system from these sources. We also desire to establish explicit discharge requirements to educate the food truck operators, as well as Humboldt County Department of Environmental Health permitting staff, on what needs to be considered and what is and isn't allowed. Staff has developed an application, which is included as attachment 1, and a permit, which is included as attachment 2, for food trucks operating out of McKinleyville. These are based around our existing commercial waste discharge permits, which are required of other restaurants and similar establishments. The intent is not to discourage or establish regulatory red tape to prevent the operation of food trucks in McKinleyville, but to educate the owner-operators on what is permissible and to protect the district's collection and treatment systems. Toward that end, the district needs to update our rules and regulations, specifically Regulation 24, which is the use of public sewers, in order to define mobile food trucks and re-identify industrial waste haulers as commercial waste haulers. Rule 24.15, hauled wastewater, was amended and has been sent to legal counsel for review. So staff recommends that the board review information provided, discuss, take public comment, and approve the first reading of ordinance 2024-02 by title only.
Okay, thanks, Pat. Is there any board comment on this item?
I have a question, Pat. The food trucks are at an establishment, and they have some kind of a relationship. I don't know what that mechanism is. They pay some rent to whichever place they're setting at. And again, I don't have any idea what that construct is. So my opinion on this is that I don't think it matters about the food truck at all. It should be that establishment that we deal with. It should be their problem. We should be talking to them, as an example, the gas station where the fish deal is at, that really nice fish thing. It should be that establishment's responsibility to make sure this is maintained, and I think it would be that establishment that we would penalize or whatever if there was a problem. Now, I'm just throwing that out. Do you have a comment on that?
And Director Beitman, do you want to chime in first?
Okay. Following that, my granddaughter runs a food truck. She calls it Who Cut the Cheese. It's very successful. And it travels from location to location. It's Friday nights, it's going to be at one particular bar. Another day, it's going to be at a public event, and so on. What I am not aware of, and maybe staff can enlighten me on this, is whether there is any kind of an ordinance that requires those mobile kitchens to have the same kind of grease interception and so on that a regular kitchen would have. And of course, if we say that following Director Mayo's suggestion that we place the burden of that on the party, the premises that have leased the space to the food truck operator, are we then moving in the direction that the local gas station or whoever it happens to be should be then required to have grease interception or whatever else is necessary in their sewer, and have it inspected on a regular basis like restaurants have. And I don't know where that leads us. Conceptually, I agree with the presentation, and I think everybody here would agree with the presentation. We need to protect our system, and we need to have some mechanism of control over what is discharged into the system. Reading this, I don't see that there's there's the clarity on the mechanism by which this takes place.
So if you read through the application, that is the whole main thrust of the application is, okay, what are you cooking? So if somebody is cooking in an approved kitchen, and they do all their cooking there, and that has grease traps and stuff, and they then take it to their food truck, and the food truck is just heating stuff up and not really cooking, then that's one scenario. And that's fine with us. The other scenario, so the application asks, what are you doing? And where are you planning on getting rid of your waste? And so if they say, well, we're gonna hook up to Luz Mila's or whatever, just to pick a random business, and we're gonna discharge our waste through their system, then part of the application says, well, okay, Luz Mila, you take this to Luz Mila and have her sign off on it and say, yes, we've discussed this and that is fine. And then, yes, we will go and inspect Luz Mila's, they do have oil and grease and a grease interceptor, and et cetera, and we'll inspect that. If they say, oh, well, I got a clean out on my home thing and I'm just gonna dump it in there, then it's like, no. You cannot do that, and our rules and regulations say you cannot do that. So you need to come up with an alternative disposal site. So that kind of it's a combination of the two. The rules and regs are, you can't be dumping oil and grease in our system unless you have a permitted and inspected system. The application then comes at it from what is your plan? And where are you planning on getting rid of this stuff? And that is kind of the education purpose too. And one of the reasons that this really came about is because Joey was getting permit applications from the county, and the county Department of Public Health permits the food trucks. Okay. They don't care where they get rid of their wastewater. So, and when we were asking the county, well, where are they going to discharge?
Clarification, Pat, the county permitting doesn't care?
Well, that might have been a bit of a stretch, but in nowhere in their application do they have anything that asks them,
So that means,
where are you gonna discharge?
Cool. So many of these trucks work out of the incubator down at the food court. Down at the old Martin Dairy, which I'm a little verklempt about because I leased that for my cattle for years before they came up with this stuff, but that's another story. So I think part of this process would be incumbent upon us to be sure that if they have waste and they say they're dumping it there after, they cook and they do that, but if they have stuff and they're going back there, that we actually know that that's where they're discharging. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that we do have, and that's part of the application process too, that allows us to go and inspect, and they have to keep track of where they discharged and how much they discharged.
Do we have to have some kind of a MOU or understanding with the city of Arcata or that industrial park field to
No, that's
vet
them.
that?
And the addition of the new Tasty Hub too on the north end of Eureka too, that they also have hookups for trucks that can come and discharge waste there. And so we talked to them about, hey, do you need any sort of approval or anything? And then, it's on the food truck.
Right.
To go and approach them.
And one other thing that we need to let these vendors know is that if they have like some kind of a smaller thing that they grab this excess as they're doing their things throughout the day. Humboldt Sanitation went out of their way to make a specific place to recycle cooking greases and oils for us. They could go there, let's just say they've got a 5-gallon thing at the end of the day and they've got extra stuff, right? They could take it to the Canes down there at Humboldt Sanitation, and they deal with it properly. So I don't know whether they know that or not, but that's information they should also know. For what it's worth.
A quick question. I'm directed to you, Pat. In this process, what is envisioned as the control point? If we're talking about a restaurant and it's physically located, inspection of the restaurant's grease traps is a control mechanism. If the thing is mobile or rolling around, is it record keeping that is then certified by whatever entity receives the discharge? What's envisioned here as the control mechanism regarding the discharge of food service waste? That's it's totally vague to me. Maybe it's clear somewhere, but I don't. I see all of this, the permittee shall, et cetera, but what's the control mechanism?
So we do have, and
Let me add to that before you answer. And who is the controller that would monitor?
so we do have a fat, oil, and grease program. Maybe I should just turn this over to you. And so the existing restaurants, et cetera, are on an inspection cycle, and that's what we would base this off of as well.
And we get a regular report on that, and I'm grateful to get that report, not so much because I want to examine the detail, but because it gives me confidence that we are controlling this process.
Yeah, and so that's how we would do it too. So that person who is inspecting restaurants, et cetera, would now also be knocking on food truck doors and say, hey, can I see your permit? And if they don't have a permit, then it's, okay, well, you know, if you're gonna be operating in McKinleyville, we need to know where you're discharging, so please fill out this permit. And if they got a permit, then it's, okay, where did you discharge? Are you keeping records of where you discharged? So it, you know, it is gonna fall to our fat, oil, and grease program and the inspectors that currently inspect that.
It's too bad that our supervisor wasn't still here, because
He is
I'm
here,
not-
he's on
He's
Zoom,
online.
yeah.
are you? Because I'm really not sure that it should be our obligation to spend our time and our staff time on this. That should be the county should be doing that. That should be part of they're permitting this, right? It should be part of they should be vetting this, not us. We shouldn't have to do that, spend our time and resources.
That's an argument to be made. You know, our biggest, we do need to educate County Department of Public Health, because they are permitting, and like I said, there was nowhere in their permit process for permitting a food truck to ask where they're discharging.
Right.
So Joey's doing a great job trying to educate them. You know, they, like Director Beitman just said, they're all over the place.
Right.
We're concerned about our system. So we want to make sure our system doesn't have grease balls in it.
Well, our due diligence is our, I mean, and I know you will, and I'm not saying we should shirk that, but our due diligence is only one level of this,
So,
in my opinion. Okay, whatever.
so in your view, that the check on this could, if not should, be part of the county's public health permitting process on food trucks.
I agree with that statement.
Can I make
Can
a
I-
suggestion?
Can I answer that one really quick?
Please,
So
please.
I think every city is obligated to take care of their own sewer main. So I know the city of Eureka has a fat oil and grease person who goes out like we do and inspects restaurants. And we do a monthly inspection. And basically what we do is we dip the grease trap, we take a measurement, and if they're getting to that overflow mark and say their pumping cycle to have it pumped out is every 3 months, we will tell them, you need to now be 2 months because you're not going to make another month. And now their routine scheduled maintenance is 2 months. And then we check every month to make sure that they are staying below the level of overflowing the baffle. And that's, and everybody seems to get along well with us on that.
Let me take that point one step further. For a stationary source, a restaurant has a pipe that's leading out into a sewer lateral, and on the way out, there's the grease interceptor, the grease trap, which can be inspected. And a regular inspection cycle and maintenance cycle and so on is part of dealing with that physical interceptor. Now, what happens when there isn't a physical location for the grease interceptor, but it's on a mobile food truck that's running around, and who knows where or how they're discharging their waste?
Well, in the application process, they have to tell us where they're doing it, and it has to be an approved location that will take the waste. For example, if it's Luz Milas, like they have to dump, we have to see where they're going to connect and make sure it's before the grease interceptor. And then we have to, then it goes deeper than this, but basically, if you're going to take this truck's waste into your system and you're on a 3-month cycle, you now need to probably go to a 2-month cycle because you're taking on additional grease. So it's going to be, we're going to have to figure this out together. But if a truck wants to do business and they are having grease build up on their truck by whatever means, they have to give us a location of an approved facility that will accept the grease, and that approved facility has to sign that they are, in fact, bringing their grease to us, or to them.
Okay, now when you say us,
The district.
the district, and so Loco Fish over here is operating a really nice food truck, and a couple of the Mexicans and so on. They're all operating under an MCSD permit that they are required to report to MCSD their waste discharge. Am I correct in that?
Well, that's what this is going to allow.
No, because we have no permit for it. So that's what this is all about, is to establish that.
Will this establish that? Will this establish that then every food truck operating within the jurisdiction or the district MCSD will then be under the authority of MCSD to monitor and report their waste discharge? In other words, that truck that's parked right over here on Central Avenue, under this ordinance, the operator of that truck will be required to give a full report of waste discharge as a condition for being able to operate within McKinleyville.
That is a correct statement. Yep.
When we go to do an inspection on that truck, they must provide us the paperwork showing us where they deposited their grease and where they've been depositing at.
And then you can go to then presumably you can go to the other end and say, okay, using Los Milas again as the example of the discharge, you can go to Los Milas and get a matching record from Los Milas for accepting the discharge from the food truck.
Right.
Okay, and presumably your staff is equipped to do this kind of.
Well, we're adding it, like Pat said, we're adding it to our fat oil and grease inspection we currently have. Yes, it will add time, but it's the time worth to maintain the sewer. So
Yeah, okay. All right, is this, I'll ask the last question pretty directly. Does this document that I'm looking at here provide the tool that is needed and will effectively support this process? In other words, if we approve this, are we giving you the tool that you need to do the job?
Well, staff developed this, we believe it does.
Okay.
But like we have had in other agenda items, I'm sure it'll be tweaked as we go along.
Well, no question about that, but to the best of our knowledge at this point, it does so.
It's much better than what we have now, which is nothing.
Okay, I've got a
Yeah.
question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, James.
To what level does this maintain consistency with, say, the city of Arcata or the city of Eureka regulations?
Nobody has regulations, and that's one of the things that we were
Whoa.
trying to, Joey was looking all over the state, frankly, to come up with draft regulations that we could model off of. I don't know.
When I contacted a specific municipality locally that I won't name, I was told, yeah, when you come up with that, let us know.
All right, well, we're going to come up with it. They're going to model after us.
Well,
Okay. Dennis?
unless you go Pat, or.
Well, I was going to share, when I worked for the city of Arcata, we went through this. And we have one specific site where the grease trucks are allowed to come and discharge. It's locked. They have to go through a permit process to get the key to that lock, and then they have to file a report on how many loads they dump in.
Right on.
So that's what
Yeah,
we do.
and we talked to Steve's too, to see if Steve's would be willing to do something like that, and they went around and around and put together costs on what it would take for them to do that, and ultimately they decided it wasn't worth it. So there is not one of those locations right here.
Well, if you'll permit the comment, having lived in rural areas most of my life, one of the favorite mechanisms for discharge is to drive down a gravel road where there's no traffic and open the valve. I've seen multiple 1,000-gallon chemical waste trucks doing that. And it's,
So I appreciate everybody's comments on this. And this is pretty frustrating to me that and Dave, thank you for your, that about the city of Arcata. You guys proactively got on this. But it's not it is our responsibility to look out for our system. And I appreciate our staff and everybody looking out for our system. But this is BS, pure BS. The county should be the ones that make this part of the permit process. And I don't want to make more problems for anybody in business. On the other hand, we went through this with the homegrown pot stuff for a long time. Every time that they dump their nutrients, we had these terrible overload nutrient load. I mean, and so it's a real issue. All of this stuff's an issue, and the grease is horrible. But I think I think this is an issue that needs to have a separate meeting, and the supervisor needs to be here, and public health needs to be here, and we need to talk to them because it's their responsibility to train these vendors, not ours, in my opinion only, okay? They need to be trained, and training is simply a lot of times just, oh, here's the permit and this is what you have to do, and that makes people, comply. I don't have any idea how many food trucks we've got. Right. And most of them are going to Arcata, I imagine. And are they dumping it at the industrial park? Dave, do you know that answer to that by any chance?
No, our facility is down at the wastewater treatment plant.
So the people who had their vendor trucks that were in the industrial, the incubator, did they go down there? Okay? So this might be somewhat moot, but I'd like to know whether it is or isn't. Because I spent a lot of time with Greg Kane getting him to put that thing in there for the cooking so that we could lobby our school kids to tell the parents to not dump the cooking grease down the drain. And they still do, but a lot of people are really good about taking it over here and dumping it. So anyway,
Yeah, and we very well may find that, no, people are really disposing of it the way they're supposed to be.
right.
But right now, we don't have any mechanism to even walk up to their door and ask them.
So I guess, Pat, the next question for me on that is, if we do this, what power do we have over these people to make them adhere to this? I mean, we don't have any real authority over anything, do we?
As far as, kicking them out of McKinleyville,
Yeah, or
No.
fining them or anything.
right, no, we don't.
So I think that should be the county's job.
Well, and yeah, one of the main thrusts of this is to give us the ability to educate these people and say, no, if you're gonna be operating here, we need to know what you're doing with your oil and grease.
And I agree, and I'm not trying to be a pain, you guys, but without some authority to that, if the county says you shall do what MCSD tells you, or will revoke your permit, that's something. Anyway, and I'm not saying we need to do that, or I'm just not 100% on knowing that we're covering our butt, that's all. I just want us to cover our butt.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. I generally don't like waiting on the county to do anything. No offense, Supervisor McPherson.
I hear you, brother.
Okay, well, even though there's no teeth to the enforcement part of this, there will be an educational component with the application and the permit issuing process. So that will at least cover that. It's better than what we have now. And if it saves us some expense in grease going down our main lines and laterals, then that makes it worth the time. And so I support this.
Could I, it would be nice to have a list of all the trucks first. Get a list of all the trucks and find out if they're all doing their thing down at the incubator, and if they are, then they're probably taking it over to where Dave says. And if that's the case, it'd be nice to know that, too.
Yeah, so this will allow us to start knocking on doors and asking that
Okay.
question.
All right.
Are we ready for the motion?
Yes, please, I'll call for a motion.
So moved. I move that
Second.
we approve this
And I'll second that.
proposal.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Joey?
President Bender,
Yes.
Director Beitman,
Yes.
Director Couch,
Yes.
Director Mann.
Yes.
Okay, we're done with that one. Item E7, first reading of ordinance 2024-03, amending Regulation 21, connection charges to address accessory dwelling units, sewer connection fees, and presented by General Manager Kaspari.
I'm gonna allow Board Secretary.
Knew it. Thank you, General Manager Kaspari. In 2017, the state of California enacted Government Code Section 65852.2 E and F in order to encourage the development of accessory dwelling units, also commonly known as mother-in-law units, to facilitate affordable housing development throughout the state. Part of the state code made it more streamlined for agency approval and dictated when and if government agencies, including water and sewer agencies, could charge fees for the connections of ADUs. In May through June 2020, the Humboldt County Planning Commission held a series of 5 public hearings on draft county ordinances and general plan amendments to reestablish local standards in conformance with the new state code. At the September 1st, 2020 Board of Supervisors meeting, the Board of Supervisors adopted ordinance number 2650, which amends various general plan and county ordinances on ADU developments to conform to the new state regulations. Further, it forbids the charging of impact fees for ADUs less than 750 square feet in size. In addition to ADUs, the ordinance also defines junior accessory dwelling units, JADUs, which have stricter rules regarding connection charges and impact fees. Further, State of California enacted Government Code Section 65852.2F states that for purposes of providing water, sewer, or power, including a connection fee, a JADU unit shall not be considered a separate or new dwelling unit. Lastly, staff has removed the development intensity charge of $225 applicable in some developments and added an administrative fee of $185, variable annually based upon COLA indexes as defined in the Personnel Policy Manual. The administration fee covers staff time worked in the preparation and review of building and planning referrals where the evaluation of the necessity of capacity and other applicable fees is a factor. The district needs to update our rules and regulations, specifically Regulation 21, connection charges, to conform to county and state regulations with regards to ADU, JADU developments. Rule 21.03, accessory dwelling unit, junior accessory dwelling unit, secondary dwelling unit connection charge was amended and has been sent to legal counsel for review. This is the first reading of the ordinance. The main provisions of the rule are to define what constitutes an ADU, define what constitutes a JADU, and detail when connection fees and other fees can be charged for an ADU or JADU development. Staff recommends that the board review information provided, discuss, take public comment, and approve the first reading of ordinance 2024-03 by title only.
Okay, thanks, Jerry. Any board discussion on this item? Okay, any comments from staff? Comments from the public? Okay, I'll call for a motion.
I'll move the agenda item.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. And Joey, please call the roll.
President Bender,
Yes.
Director Beitman,
Yes.
Director Couch,
Yes.
Director Mayo.
Yes.
Okay, that's approved. Moving on to item E8. First reading of ordinance 2024-04, amending Regulation 5, application for regular water service to address accessory dwelling units water connection fees, presented by either Joey or Pat.
I'll do this one. So the last one was sewer regs. This is our water regs, same things. And staff recommends that the board review the information provided, discuss, take public comment, and approve the first reading of ordinance 2024-04 by title only.
Okay, thank you. Bring it back to the board for discussion. Do we have the same amount of discussion?
Yes.
Evidently so. Staff? Public? Now I'll call for a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Joey, would you please call the roll?
President Bender,
Yes.
Director Beitman,
Yes.
Director Couch,
Yes.
Director Mayo.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That passes. Item E9, consider approval of resolution 2024-17 to pursue grant funding from the California State Revolving Fund for the Sewer Force Main Rehabilitation Project, presented by Pat Kaspari.
Microphone.
Thanks, Joy. The district is seeking planning and designing funding through the Clean Water State Revolving Fund for replacement of or rehabilitation of 4 aging sewer force mains from 4 lift stations, the Fisher, B, Letts, and Kelly stations, to improve the reliability of the MCSD wastewater collection system and protect nearby water quality. As a requirement of the grant application, a resolution, which is included as attachment 1, must be approved by the board to designate the authorized representative for the project who will have the authority to sign and submit the Clean Water SRF application materials. Most of the original force main piping is AC pipe, which has an expected life of 50 to 70 years, so is reaching the end of its useful life. The AC pipe can be susceptible to corrosion from sewer off-gassing and additionally, over time, this pipe tends to become more brittle, and the erosion of the pipe wall can cause a reduction in wall thickness. This degradation of pipe condition can lead to increased leaks and breaks. As the system continues to age, replacement and rehabilitation of force mains in the system is necessary to maintain a reliable, safe, and functional system. If one of the sewer mains were to break, or one of the sewer force mains were to fail, it would pose a serious issue for the district and surrounding water bodies. Force main failure would likely lead to discharge of untreated sewage into local waterways. It would be very difficult and time-consuming to bypass flows around the failed force main to allow for repair. The lift station associated with the failed force main would likely overflow with sewage within hours, which would also cause backup within the pipe network and additional discharges of untreated sewage. This is a planning and design grant that, if awarded, will take this project to 95% completion level. Staff will then pursue a construction grant to take the 95% plan to the final bid documents and construct the force main replacements. As outlined in the plan of study, the table below lists the tasks and estimated costs to be covered in this grant. I won't read through those, but the planning will cost approximately $742,000 and will include a 25% cost share, which the district will utilize the sewer collection capital improvement account to cover. So staff recommends that the board review this information provided, discuss, take public comment, and approve resolution 2024-17, authorizing the general manager to act as the authorized agent to sign and submit the Clean Water SRF grant application material to seek funding for the rehabilitation of the district's sewer force mains.
Okay, thanks, Pat. Do you have any board discussion here?
No, Phil, thank you for the page 227 schedule and budget table. It lays it out very clearly, and that's what I would be looking for.
Okay. Dennis, do you have any comment on this? Okay.
I
Staff?
had a comment, just that,
okay.
for those of you who don't know, we're talking about AC pipe. So AC pipe is asbestos concrete, so it's kind of a wrap of those two materials, and it really does degrade.
It really does what, Dave?
It does degrade.
Yes,
So
it
when they
does.
say the 50 to 75 years, when it hits 50, it needs to be replaced.
Okay. That's what we have back here in Grace Park, isn't it?
Yeah, we have a lot of AC pipe throughout the system that we are working on lining. For the sewer stuff, we probably are gonna line a lot of it, like we did on Central.
Is that
Are you
it?
cutting that pipe?
Yikes. Okay. Is there any more discussion? Staff?
I am gonna chime in one last thing. We got some really disappointing news on the SRF funds. County Tom and Sean were talking about how the state was diverting funds to cover other items. And they did. A lot of the funding coming from the Inflation Reduction Act went to the SRF program, and the state diverted it to other programs. So we're likely not gonna get this grant this year, but we're gonna get the application in, so it's sitting there in a queue, so when there is funding. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And in our continuing legislative work, that's something that we have to continually keep on, because the SRF is really where we get most of what we depend on and have worked. It's quite, when I was talking to those guys earlier about to get the money and then how to, it's just so frustrating that anyway, I appreciate it. It's just frustrating.
Okay. Any more comment from staff? Comment from the public? Nothing? Okay. I'll call for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Joey, would please call the roll?
President Binder,
Yes.
Director Beitman,
Yes.
Director Couch,
Yes.
Director Bam.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. E9 is passed. Okay, going on to active committee reports. Park and Rec Committee, that would be me, and I don't have anything to add to the published report in the board package. B, Area Fund, John Colstead and myself, we did not meet. C, Redwood
Can
Region.
I ask you a question, and I should know this? Do you know when our next round of applications for the grants are?
For the McKinleyville Area Fund?
They'll be published in the early part of 2025, and they generally are distributed in May.
Well, I mean the applications.
The application is distributed probably in February or March.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay. REDEC, Mr. Beitman.
REDAC has met twice. The first was at Rio Dell, and we had a presentation by the Rio Dell city manager. We were nicely hosted there. We learned that Rio Dell is struggling, as is not any great revelation. As it was presented to us, Rio Dell is a separately incorporated entity, and the city manager described it as a bedroom community, and it has, as a consequence, it has no tax base other than real estate tax, which is of course been appropriated off by the state of California. They had a program which they thought was going to be helpful to them, which is there's a parcel within the city limits that was scheduled for development. They thought it was going to become a taxable revenue producing entity, and the state swooped in and took it away and is using it now, setting it up to use for a CDF base. And so their one great hope that they would actually have a way of providing some tax revenues for the city was taken away by the state. And there was I won't say there was a wringing of hands, but you could see that the presenters were pretty doggone discouraged. That's about the only way I can say it.
Say the least.
Say the least. The next meeting, and I've forgotten the name of the organization, this was a regular meeting of REDEC. It was at the City Hall in Eureka, as meetings have generally been in the past, and we had a presentation from an economic, I'm not sure whether it's an analyst or whether it's just a fact-finding or whatever, but it was an extensive economic report on the North region, which includes Lake, Mendocino, Humboldt, and Del Norte counties, and a good look, good overview of the economic growth and development of the region. And I guess the best way to summarize that, which is it's not. Another, I don't know, page after page after page after page of a report that all added up to the same thing, which is the future is not bright. And I don't know what else to say. Were action items offered as a way of somehow or other producing a brighter future? And the answer is no. Cannabis industry is basically a non-industry. And other industries, if you will, fishing, timber, et cetera, are all in decline and are projected to continue in decline. Cattle industry is, and of course, in the midst of this presentation comes the announcement that Redwood Meats is closing, which is the only FDA-approved slaughterhouse in the area, which means that livestock producers no longer have a local place to take their livestock for slaughtering and butchering, and that, of course, affects my grandkids who are showing their livestock at the fair for 4-H and FFA. Where do they take the pigs? And so we don't have a local slaughter. We're losing a local slaughterhouse. And if you pay any attention to it, you'll see that there's been a fair amount of report on it, family issues, owning the business, and so on. But it's just one more piece of the whole thing. And in my mind, it goes back to all of the demonstrations that, for the fishing industry here that closed our refrigeration over a non-issue, which was the toxicity of anhydrous ammonia, which, number one, is not toxic and is used widely in agriculture, but that didn't stop the demonstrations and it didn't stop us from losing it. So piece by piece by piece, we have been losing those industries that support the economy of the region, and there is no projection for anything to change that trend. That was the report at the last meeting. One happy piece of news in the whole thing was that I sit on the loan committee and we approved a loan for Oric, for the Huffords to purchase the theater, and a lot of enthusiasm over what could be the future of the Oric Theater and the community of Oric. So that was a bright spot. That was the report from REDUC.
About it. Okay, thank you. Director Mayo?
Small victories, it's really good to do something for
You
Oric.
know, that's something tangible for God's sake.
Just to add to what Director Beitman said about Redwood Meat, I met with Senator McGuire's staff and a potential buyer at Redwood Meat about 9 days ago. We went, and of course I know the operation well, and I can't say anhydrous
Anhydrous ammonia.
Okay, that's a significant cost to them. Their average monthly utility bill was $18,000. Now they have a significant storage, cold storage facility and stuff. And there are people who are interested, extremely interested in that process, but then we find out that they haven't paid since Butch got killed in that truck wreck. Nobody's paid any income tax or anything. I mean, it's really, really a terrible deal. There is someone who would start in right now and start, but the tax thing is significant, and we're working. Senator McGuire is very willing to help to try to come up with low cost or no cost interest for some funds to help. But this tax deal, which we weren't aware of, is just a nightmare. So anyway, I just wanted to add that to the deal. We thought we had something set up, and it may yet. It's so significant to the only thing more significant to our farming, agriculture community is the lack of another cold storage facility, which we've been working on for the fishermen for a long time, and we don't have. So a couple infrastructure things could make things happen in this community. You know.
If I may chime in very briefly. Pat, I know I have a chemical engineering background, and I understand refrigeration chemistry, and ammonia-based refrigeration is by far the most efficient means of refrigeration. And anhydrous ammonia is commonly used as an agricultural fertilizer, just basically injected directly into the soil. It's a principal source of nitrogen, but that did not stop all the demonstrations that claimed that anhydrous ammonia is horrifically toxic and resulted in the public outcry against an efficient refrigeration system. Are we going to find the same thing, the same level of demonstrations, screaming and yelling and so on, at the same level of ignorance? I don't know. Do we have a big education process ahead of us if we attempt to reestablish a a major refrigeration facility that would support the fishing industry. These are the kinds of things, and when you get right down to the granular level, the numbers are really clear. They're unmistakable. The region, the 4 counties are losing all of their basic sustaining industry. And then when you get down to the granular level and start asking the questions of why, you get into things such as an accident, that a leader of an important local business was killed. You get into demonstrations that resulted in the shutdown of an important facility necessary to support one industry. So it gets, you see these little piece by piece by piece things. There doesn't seem to be, in any of this report that's coming to REDEC, there doesn't seem to be any over-the-top aggregate positive answer. And that's worrisome. Are we going to have this great, wonderful industry that's going to show up? But cannabis is going to do it. It doesn't.
Again, that's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons that I was so positive, and I think the board as well is so positive for you being on REDEC, your expertise to be able to postulate those important granular issues.
Anyway, you're getting into my personal frustration, and I intended this to be a report that we could all get our minds around. I wanted something bright and positive, and the redevelopment of the
Yeah, you got to talk about ORIC.
You're right. Okay, that's the bright.
That's fine. Okay, Tom?
Yes, sir.
Can you step up to the mic?
This is all.
All zooming.
You ready?
Is the green light on the microphone?
Right here.
Wood Rise meeting that was in late April. And one of the things that came out of that, from my perspective, was the state has set up this big money grant program. The first part of it is the Catalyst program to get some initial things going. And then a bunch of money is supposed to come at grants specifically to promote jobs. That's what they're looking for. What I was surprised at was that a lot of people from all over the Mendocino County, Trinity, not Trinity, but Del Norte and Humboldt and Lake had lots of representatives there, but Humboldt hardly had anything at all. The only 2 people that were representing Humboldt were Mary Keene's project and the doctor's adult facility over here was the only 2 things that showed up. Fort Bragg, in fact, had 3 representatives there, and they brought the city mayor, the person that was economic development, and a full-time grant writer. So all the money was there, but there was nobody from Humboldt to go ahead and actually participate in that process. I'm not going to go back to those Redwood Rise meetings because we went there to see if we could get some help on getting some funding for doing our investigation of the incorporation stuff, and they weren't interested in that because that wasn't going to promote any jobs. So, thanks.
Thanks, Tom.
It would be, may I?
Yes, you may.
It would be good if you would go to the Board of Supervisors Tuesday and let them know that. Seriously. Yeah, because generally they're the ones that would allocate someone to, do that. And so, I mean.
Actually, there was 2 supervisors there. Supervisor McGrone was there, and who's the 4th one down at the end?
Bushnell?
No, the far south one.
I can't hear.
The name escapes me all of a sudden.
I can't hear. I don't know what he's saying.
Who's the fourth?
Man or woman? Man or woman?
No. Who's the first one?
Wilson?
No, second?
Rex Bowen?
Rex, it was Rex.
Well, if Rex there, we got a pretty good coverage.
Okay. I also don't think there's going to be a board meeting on Tuesday. I didn't see an agenda published on Saturday, and I check every Saturday morning. So you might want to double check that on Legistar.
Right. Well, if Rex was there, it was getting covered.
Okay, moving along. McKinleyville Senior Center Board Liaison Report, that would be me. Well, for the last 2 months, we started out planning to have a Christmas in July event, and that got canceled because my ankle got canceled and I can't haul crap around. So we're gonna have a Christmas in December event. We have our storage unit completely packed with Christmas stuff that one of our board members scored at a yard sale and bought the whole shebang. And which is many cubic yards of Christmas, old stuff, old heritage Christmas items. It's going to be a really, really nice show in December.
May I offer you a olive branch, if you will? I know you get a lot of stuff, maybe more important than that. I've got a lot of room in the barn. If you need a place to store that for a while, you're certainly welcome to. And I'm happy to bring the horse trailer down and move it for you if you need to.
That'd be great, Dennis. We'll probably end up taking you up on that because it's overflowing into my office and I can't get in there hardly now. But anyway, that got canceled. Other than that, things are going rather well. We are going to be moving the Humboldt Senior Resource Center's Tuesday food distribution up there to the east parking area starting next Tuesday. Am I right?
They did it this Tuesday.
Oh, they did it this week?
Yeah.
I must have been out of the loop on that. That's okay, great. Okay, so that got moved. And okay, that's about all I have for Senior Center. Since I'm kind of out of commission, I haven't been in there only unless I have to be. So Audit and Finance Committee, Director Orsini isn't here, so that'll fall on Mr. Beitman.
I did not meet with the committee. I don't know whether the committee met, so I don't think it met.
Yeah, it probably didn't meet. Okay, employee negotiations.
Not meet, okay.
We did not meet.
You did not meet. The MCMAC, that would be Director Orsini, and he's not here, and I didn't attend. Pat, did you?
Yeah, and I didn't put together a report. What did we talk about? Because I'm so used to
I
Greg.
can tell you their Zoom didn't work very well because I couldn't get in on it.
That was probably Joey's fault. That was a joke.
He's just finding out.
And I can tell you they were happy I didn't, so that's okay.
I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on what we even talked about.
There was no July one.
Long time ago. Want to just skip that then?
Okay.
That was easy. Okay, the McKinleyville Community Forest Committee, Director Orsini or Director Beitman.
We met, and in essence, we laid out a calendar of meetings. Trying to think what else we.
The big discussion, Jim, if I remember, was on how to have Zoom meetings or not.
Yeah, and so therefore it was the meeting location. We met in the senior center, and which everybody liked the location, except it does not facilitate Zoom. And so the decision was to move the location of the meeting to this room where we can do Zoom. And I think that was pretty much the substance of it.
Yeah.
And it was mostly an introduction, people getting to know themselves, know each other, and who were the members of the committee, and just kind of a first get together and say hello, shake and howdy kind of meeting.
It was a nice turnout.
Yeah, it was. And there were almost as many people in the gallery as there was at the table.
Yeah.
So it was a very pleasant meeting.
All right.
There's a report on how did we do? We do okay?
Okay.
Okay.
The HBMWD Muni Water Task Force report. Director Couch.
We also did not meet.
We also did not meet. Okay. Okay, legislative and regulatory reports. Does anyone have anything? Director Mayo.
So there's so much going on. I don't want to get into I mean, it's, and we have this state ledge committee meeting with Aqua, which I'm not an official member, but I attend on Zoom every meeting, and there's probably 100 of us in that meeting, and it's brutal. How many times can you take a bill and tear it apart and redo it and back and forth, and then have them at the last minute go, oh, we're not going to do that, it's going to go on a 2-year bill, we'll do it next year. But there's one thing that I did want to mention to everybody, which is an absolute frustration. San Francisco Mayor London Breed and the Board of Supervisors came up with this San Francisco Journey Home program, and that's Newsom supported because as it's a presidential race, just like when Chairman Xi, how do you say his name? The Chinese Communist President, Xi, X-I-Z, whatever the hell. They cleaned up all the homeless down there for about 3 weeks. Well, now, during the election, they've decided that since the Supreme Court had passed this deal about letting municipalities work on their own ways of getting people out of public spaces, homeless people out of public spaces. So the San Francisco Journey Home program has shipped out about 900 homeless, and 30% of them are going to California counties. And guess which county is kind of the #1 recipient of those? Humboldt County. Just wanted to point that out, folks, that our county has no will to deal with this situation whatsoever. And out of that 900, the 30% of that 900, I don't know exactly how many are coming here, but that's just now the 900. There'll be more. There's a lot. I think it was like, if I remember right, it was like 3,700 homeless in San Francisco, something like that. It's really high. So we're going to get more, and we're going to get an influx in McKinleyville of it too. And I know there's lots of beautiful people here with a beautiful hearts, trying to do the best they can, and I won't go any farther with like 2 cents worth on that. But it's worth knowing.
Okay. Any other items of a legislative nature we wish to discuss here? Regulatory nature?
Supervisor Madron does have his hand up.
Okay. Supervisor?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, anyway, good meeting, lots of good discussions. I heard the stuff about the grease traps and, what is the county's responsibility, and I'd certainly be willing to attend a future agenda and have that discussion about how we partner and work on that. And I applaud you for wanting to do the educational piece to that. So this is not on legislative and regulatory. I've had my hand up for a little bit, but I wanted to also comment on the Redwood Rise report. I want to thank Tom for attending those meetings, and I have attended what I can, and I've submitted a proposal concept to build a young youth workforce, in particular working on our roads to do, brushing before the mower gets there to kind of daylight all the hard objects. So when the mower gets there, he doesn't hit the metal post, the tire, the rock, and then bust the machine for 20, 30 grand, and then it's down. I see it as a great component to add to our road measure and to provide youth jobs in the summertime to help us get our roads in good shape as far as the brush, which leads to fire starts along the roadways and all that. So I just wanted to share that. Otherwise, appreciate being able to attend, and I'll just continue to listen. And so, Scott, this could cover what you normally do under President's Report, if that's okay with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to staff reports. Finance and Administration Department, Director Howard.
Thank you, President Bender. The only revision I have to my report is on the other updates, where I stated the interest rate has been negotiated for 90 days. Due to a hiccup with MCSD and their allocation of interest, I had to go back and let them know that they did not apply the interest. So they're fixing that, and it's been now applied through the end of the year. So it's negotiated through December 31st. Which is great, that's exciting. In addition to that, we will be having a couple Finance and Audit Committee meetings coming up in the near future, one being for the single audit, which we hope to have wrapped up very soon, and another to discuss our CalClass investments, which we'll be reaching out to schedule those meetings, hopefully by the end of September.
Okay, great. Thank you for your efforts.
Could I have a quick question?
Yes.
Just a ballpark, and I know you may not know yet. What's that interest going to net us, that return of interest? Do you have
For MCSD, is that what you're?
Yeah.
So it's negotiated at a 2.49% interest rate right now. When I came on board back in April, we were earning approximately $27 to $35 per month on our $3 million balance. I've negotiated it, like I said, at 2.49, and it's been between $7,100 and $6,500 per month, depending on expenditures and outflows.
Marvelous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Operations Department, Director Henry.
Nothing further to add.
Nothing further. Parks and Rec Department, Director Messmer.
Just a few things. So the BMX park, construction will begin with trees coming down. August 19th is our target date for that. So just an FYI that public may be concerned about why we're taking down all the trees, and it's so we can build a park and put in beautiful trees and grass after we get the rest of the park in. And then the other thing that I wanted to add, obviously, we've been in a staffing transition. We should be fully staffed the 16th of this month, with Mason coming on as our other recreation coordinator. We're now fully staffed for our parks crew. We had a rough July, and we had to suspend swap crews, so we had some staff transition. There was a question that was brought up on if we make up those dates. So we get 12 swap per our agreement, our lease agreement for the law enforcement facility. And then we also get 12, I should say not 12 people, 12 days. And then we also get 12 days through the Central Ave agreement. So 24 days a year. To date, through January through June, there was 26 Saturdays, and I'm pretty sure we met every single one of those. So even though we missed out on some swap days in July and August, we still get way more than they are even offering us on a yearly basis. So.
Okay, good.
Nothing
That was one
further.
of my questions. Thanks for clearing that up.
I had a question for you.
Yes.
I was going to wonder, with the school in Washington Park, can we have something in the media about that it's starting, so that?
We do have a plan to be doing some Facebook posts that will have the layout of what the park's going to look like. So we're trying to have our positive spin on it as people can see from social media posts today. You can't control people's reaction to, or can't control everyone's reaction to things, but we'll try to at least, on the district page, we'll have the positive, we're building a park spin.
It's been in plans for a while. If they haven't followed it, it's.
Typical reactionary things. Okay, General Manager report.
Do have a couple things I want to mention. So it's year end, and every month I put in the cost savings. And so the total for last year was roughly $400,000 of real savings that your district staff has realized for the district. So it's not a minor amount. It pays for a lot of things that we're able to do. So want to make sure that district staff is commended for that. They do a great job, as demonstrated by Samantha and her sharp eyes. Also wanted to give a quick update on the 4.5 million gallon tank. They did finish the last wall section. They are currently setting up for the second half of the roof pour, which will be the week of the 19th. And then they are going to be bringing in the pre-stressing machine the last week in August and start pre-stressing the first week in September. Joey will be reaching out again to the board to do another observation day. And I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item F4, President's report. I don't have too much to report. So that's about it there. F5, board member comments, announcements, reports, and agenda item requests. Yes, Dennis.
I don't know whether any of y'all happened to see the McKinleyville Community Watch Facebook page yesterday and today. A lot of misinformation, and yet some correct concerns. Some folks have been up to the community forest, and the motorcycles have been up there some. I don't know what level or how much or what have you. And the conversation was, most of the people were absolutely unaware of any of the legal, parameters and stuff. So I just wanted to bring that up. Y'all should take a peek at it. It's something that we, part of our public PR stuff to kind of, I didn't respond, and I just wanted to, Pat, you might take a look at it and see how,
Well, I've read it.
You have already?
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, I just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, it's going to be an ongoing issue.
Yeah.
We're working on it. like a
And
lot of other
I
things.
know, the misinformation part of it was the worst for me, that people who are pretty generally intelligent and educated people that have not a clue about what the structures are in our, anyway, whatever. Okay.
Yeah, I've been quietly policing for disrespect there, but I haven't issued an opinion on that one either. It's probably up to 150 comments by now.
Is that our consensus, is that we shouldn't weigh in on that? Is that what?
Well, I personally am not going to, because it might be something that comes before this body,
Yeah.
and that'd be a Brown Act thing. So I'm keeping quiet.
It's generally our stance that we don't engage on Facebook.
That was my thought, yeah.
Yeah, you, as personal citizens, can do whatever you want, of course.
Well, no, I think I wouldn't do that personally. I just, as we proceed,
We need to, at one of the meetings, maybe assign staff person that responds, and none of the rest of us do, or whatever. Whatever you guys
The
say.
biggest thing that I have right now with this is, well, not only the misinformation, but the failure to acknowledge that for the decades that there have been motorcycle and ATV, OHV riding up there, they have been riding illegally to begin with. Green Diamond and Louisiana Pacific before them never granted public access for recreational purposes for motorized vehicles. So in essence, the policy hasn't changed, only the owners have changed. And the enforcement mechanism that Louisiana Pacific didn't have, that Green Diamond doesn't have, and that the district doesn't have has also not changed. Nothing has changed but who they're pointing the finger at.
Okay, anyway, I just, something I thought.
I was going to say, if people comment on that, as a you know, because you're on the board, if two of us do it, it's okay. If a third person comments, and it becomes potentially a serial board meeting.
Right.
So
As
that's,
on the McKinleyville Community Watch deal, some time ago, I guess, about a year ago, I guess, we had a little conversation and said, well, if one of you, so, and I used to, throw in something that I thought was informational, and so did Scott or whatever. But if one of, I just don't
I
participate.
mean, you can't even hit the like button anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, that's fine.
All right. Sorry.
All right, anything else? Okay, we can adjourn then. Oh, Tom.
Couple comments. I would suggest that, you want to give me a, oh, there you go. I would, before the meeting with the MCMAC, I would suggest that the board here get a copy of the ordinance that the Director Pord has put together and read it to get some information, so you have some foundation for your conversation. Secondly is, we haven't had much feedback from Director Ford because he's hung up on the CEQA, on the environmental issues. So the information you may get from Director Ford may not be as productive as you'd like because he's just kind of stuck until the CEQA comes through. And third, I'd be disappointed if you didn't do some talking in concept about the incorporation stuff. I've been part of that committee, and we've done a lot of work. We've tried to be fair. We're not making any positions for or against, but it's really important that you know all the work that we've done so you can calibrate that. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Okay, are we done, guys?
I think Pat's going to vet that all out with
Yeah.
the director.